Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Movie Husband. I think you know the deal by now. Matt does not do horror movies, so here I am. I am alone. I would appreciate if you guys could all harass him and make him watch horror movies. Anyway, Bring Her Back. So, Bring Her Back is another in a seemingly endless line of high concept, high execution horror films from A24. The film is written and directed by RackaRacka, or should I say Michael and Danny Philippou, most notable for making the transition from short filmmaking on YouTube to the feature debut Talk to Me. Talk to Me was a quiet sensation when it premiered at Sundance. I caught wind of it and I was really excited to see it, and I thought that film didn't disappoint at all. In particular, an extremely unnerving middle passage that translates high concept to mind-altering thrills. I was really impressed. It was just an impressive from a filmmaking perspective, perhaps more so from a visceral perspective. But even as its script meandered a bit towards the end, I felt like most of it felt like this new wave MTV style rebellion that was brewing in the horror scene. One I was really excited for to see subsequent entries. Bring Her Back feels both more accomplished and disappointingly regressive in some ways, depending where you focus your attention. Their visual sense has taken a giant leap forward. It's marrying artful composition and this evocative imagery with editing choices that are simultaneously jarring and graceful. Levity is rare in the film, but it has a few laughs that are mostly indebted to smart editing choices, and I always attribute that to thoughtful filmmaking. For a horror film that's proudly advertised as a stomach-churning good time, even I was surprised at the film's rarely employed but thunderously effective extremity. There's a scene where I actually turned away from the screen, and I genuinely can't recall another time that that's occurred in a movie theater. It's the scene with the cantaloupe, by the way, and you'll know it when you see it. A studio-funded genre film devoted to extremity and nihilistic face-rubbing will always have my respect, and the images this film is willing to show deserve commendation for sure. However, something is very much lost as much as this film is a level up. In particular, Talk to Me had a scrappy ambition of an independent horror film, one produced without intervention or adherence to expectation or narrative. It started with an unexpected bang and continued to surprise me even with how the story evolved. It disappoints me to say that Bring Her Back, though very well executed and formally controlled in a lot of ways, feels distinctly in the framework of an A24 horror movie, i.e., a clear metaphor for trauma or grief, a gradually unraveling plot that's heavy on atmosphere and light on details, and a particular art house vibe that's aesthetically impressive but perhaps thematically shallow. Essentially, this film employs what I think is the best plot structure of a horror movie to create a building sense of unease, gradually reveal information and details that collide with an all-out hell ferocity of a conclusion. However, the concept of the film is so thin that you're always 3 steps ahead of its reveals. If you know the title of this movie, you're essentially waiting an hour and 20 minutes for it to tell you something you already know is happening. These reveals don't feel illuminating or surprising in any way, but they have that deadening feeling of seeing a plot construct rather than feeling the thrill of its events, then thinking about the construction later. When the concept stretches credulity, the audience is expected to fully commit to this theme of the desperation of grief. A theme, of course, that's very true in the real world, but very thinly rendered here. More a story convenience than an insightful commentary. Now, the good stuff. The film's imagery is pretty extraordinary, actually. It feels cliche to say certain images will be burned into my memory, but in the 2 days since I've seen the film, that's exactly what has happened. Some of these images are in the trailer. A rather creepy Ollie standing in an empty pool in the rain, a bloody hand making circles on a foggy window. There are plenty of others that I won't spoil, but it's clear our director's visual sense is progressing at a massive rate. Their sound design work is terrific as well. The screeching and skirting and creaking and scraping, it had me gripping my seat at points. Sadly, a lot of that feels soiled by a miscalculated conclusion, one that prioritizes a tonally misguided sentimentality over a prospectively ugly lesson in dark humanity. I'm certainly not against a happy ending in a horror film, and I guess some of you may be saying, this wasn't a happy ending at all. And yeah, I know, I hear that, I understand what you're saying, but more what I mean is that characters begin to learn from their mistakes, which morphs a narrative that effectively portrayed the dark side of grief into a lesson of acceptance and meaning that felt like a completely different movie to me. Building a film around the darkest humanity that rests within us, all only to wimp out at the conclusion, I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way, and it felt like a haphazard way of diverting audience expectation. All in all, I'd give a modest recommendation to Bring Her Back. Its failures on a storytelling level don't completely outweigh its technical sense, which does rise above the A24 horror crop, But the director's devotion to a vague framework, instead of continuing to build out their place in the horror pantheon, squanders some of the goodwill of their first film. And I very much hope that they get back on track. More than an outright failure, it's more of a grief-stricken mother saying, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." I'm going to give Bring Her Back a B-. Please let me know below what you thought of Bring Her Back. I would love to hear if you've seen it in theaters this weekend, and we will see you next time.